Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We've seen overall, as far as the government is concerned, the opposition, mainly PTI, and their cross-talk. There's also, of course, accusations that PTI as a party levels against the government. Its ramifications as far as the political process is concerned, as far as the relationship between the government and the opposition is concerned. Of course, its own ramifications as far as certainty, and of course, we're looking at the financial side of things, the economy, its repercussions on that economy. What can we expect in the next couple of weeks? Of course, those are very crucial from that aspect also. As far as talks are concerned, as far as do we expect, rationally speaking, and realistically speaking, for there to be headway with regard to talks now that that's been going on for a while, whether these talks are going to go ahead or not. There's been a lot of cross talk, there's been back and forward exchange. What will it eventually translate into? All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Saif Jamshed Baryar, who's a senior analyst. Thank you for being with us today. We have Aniq Zafar, who's a political analyst. Thank you for joining us today. Javed Jadoon, who's a senior journalist. Thank you for being with us today. We'll also be joined by other guests during the course of the program. Let me go to Javed Saab. Javed Saab, for a while we've been hearing this. We talk about, there is this talk about these talks that are to be held as far as the government and the opposition is concerned, which are then preceded by some hot exchanges. There is, back and forward fiery exchange between the government and the opposition. Realistically speaking, it's been going on for a while now. What do you expect?
Thank you very much, Mahrukh. I think not talking is not an option for political forces and political parties because in democracy, the art of politics depends on negotiating the most impossible even issues. They have to sit on the negotiating table and then you find a way forward. Otherwise, if there's a deadlock and unending deadlock, then it definitely costs any country very heavily. In Pakistan's context, if you look at the state of economy, definitely we are struggling at the moment. Though economy is reviving, but we've got a long way to go. We have to negotiate a new program with the IMF. Inflation, of course, is coming down, but the growth rate is still dismal and unemployment is still persisting. And there are myriads of challenges which is facing the country right now, and the government definitely is struggling to meet these challenges. In such a situation, Mahrukh, I believe that equally important for the government and the opposition, because today's opposition is tomorrow's government and today's government is tomorrow's opposition, as they say. So not talking would be extremely unlikely, or rather would be a kind of a rigid attitude on part of the opposition, main opposition party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, because the parliament is a very important forum right now. There are political forces represented in the parliament.
Let me interject. When you say, of course, not talking, and of course PTI as in the opposition and their own relevance as the opposition, when they say that, it admits, they do admit to past mistakes recently and the fact that they want to learn from them. Do you think one of them is this, what can one say, inability to bend, the flexibility that is required invariably in politics that was earlier missing as far as the PTI was concerned?
Yes, I think you're right, because as far as Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is concerned, they have gone through several rough patches. They have been struggling. They are at the receiving end right now. So why not utilize in a best possible way the platform of the lower house of the parliament, which is the National Assembly of Pakistan, which is represented by all political parties of Pakistan. They definitely have this opportunity to put forward their own terms and conditions, and at least they can sort of negotiate on certain things. You can continue to remain, as far as the opponents are concerned, you can remain an opponent of the other political parties which are in power, but there are certain issues which need cooperation on part of the opposition as well, because if tomorrow you come into power and the country's economy is in shambles, then how could you deliver? Because people, what people should be expecting from all these political parties. Negotiating is, I think, the only option for Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf.
And the premise is that all political parties want to work for the people, and they want to deliver for the people, and that should precede any other consideration, ideally speaking. Let me come back to you on that. Saif Saab, there is, on the one hand, of course, the PTI says that they want to talk. On the one hand, they say that they want to learn from those mistakes. But on the other hand, whenever these talks happen, again, there is, is it all hyperbole in your opinion? Do you think that, they mean what they say when they say that they want these talks to work, or is it just politicking in your opinion?
Thank you for having me here, Mahrukh. Well, the first point is that there is no bridge of connectivity between Tehreek-e-Insaf and the representation that it stands for, and within the government at the moment. We've seen before that at first we had an impression that maybe Barrister Govt was in the lead lines of the party, and then we saw Umar Ayub Saab in the lead lines of the party, and then came in another figure, Sher Afzal Khan Marbat, in the lead lines of the party. Whenever there is an impression of a talk, actually first PTI emerged into SIC right now, they need to have some clarification that who's going to lead the talks to begin with. The very first time that as a member of the common public I got a little clarity was when I saw the former president Arif Alvi taking the lead role in initiating an effort between Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf and the government. Now this is the first point. The second point is that to whom does PTI actually want to talk to? Now, in a democracy, if they actually want to talk to, they'll have to talk to the government.
Right.
They cannot, subside the government of Pakistan and bring in another institution that is primarily a part of the government of Pakistan. So, therefore, this is the second notion or the premise on which PTI needs to establish a forward-looking ground for talking. And then the third idea is the violent incidents of 9th May. That day, I was hearing out one of a very senior PTI member who was also the Speaker of the last National Assembly before the PDM government, and he said that we won't even ask forgiveness from our own father. So the very idea over here is that first you need to establish that who is going to talk if they are going to talk to. Number second, you need to establish that on what grounds are you going to talk to, and to whom are you going to talk to. That will be the GOP, the government of Pakistan. And the third thing, are you going to talk on what really matters? 9th May really matters at the moment. If they are willing to owe an apology onto that, the doors of negotiations, the doors of political dialogue have been, are and will always be open. This is the premise of talking.
Aniq sir, there's also, again, like Saif is also saying, as far as talking and who they're going to talk to, because there was a lot of, we've seen that there was earlier other institutions have been given prominence over perhaps Parliament, over Government of Pakistan, over necessarily, primary political forces. Do you think that there is clarity there?
Thank you, Mahrukh. I don't think there is clarity there, because again we have seen, if I walk you back a few weeks, you will realize that there are different kinds of statements coming out of PTI's leadership. As my fellow panelist pointed out, that who is going to lead it, who has been nominated by the top man. Because in PTI, at least we know that maybe other parties, the same is the case with the other parties, but in PTI particularly, the top man can shoot down any negotiation, shoot down any come out, even if a committee comes to a conclusion with the negotiating with the other negotiating party, the final approval has to come from someone who will not be part of the committee. So, number one, it depends that does he want it, or it is the wish of the people sitting on the floor of the house.
The second-tier leadership.
Second-tier leadership, because again now there is a dilemma for the party as well. People who are sitting on the floor of the house ultimately will must have started understanding that they cannot keep the temperature high all the time. It has to come down. There is always a natural cycle of highs and lows. So if they have to come down, bring down the temperature, What are their options? Their options is to use the platform of the parliament, the Senate, the National Assembly, engage with the other side through the Speaker's office, through the Chairman Senate's office. These are the offices which by default are made to function more in a more neutral position. So they have to first decide that whether they want to bring down the temperature, and obviously it's but natural that they will have conditions, preconditions and all that, and the government should also accept that. But again, question will remain that if they continue to insist that they will be only holding talks with a particular institution's top hierarchy or whatever hierarchy they want to, that is not going to work. It has to work through the government. I am sure that the government also wants to bring them on board, because government wants political stability that should lead to economic stability. And again, coming back to the point that people who are now part of the system, they have an entirely different outlook on the political situation, and people who are outside the system, they will always have a different outlook on the system.
Let me go to Zahid Gishkori Saab. Zahid Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, Mahrukh.
This acknowledgement that we've seen as far as, acknowledging mistakes, do you think this is also because some of the interesting things that pointed out here in the studio that, there is who is going to be calling the shots, and there's only really one person in PTI who it seems is going to be doing that. But when owning up to mistakes is concerned, is this also something that, PTI as a political party acknowledges, throughout its tiers, and they want to change things because, therefore they want to talk, or is it just, the second tier leadership and there's confusion generally?
Mahrukh, first of all, I could not be able to hear the debate. I have no idea what exactly our topic is, but I understand that there is a negotiation, the topic of the government with the PTI.
We're talking about the government and the PTI, and this talks, we've seen for a while. We've spoken before also on whether, the inability of these talks to translate into anything tangible really, and how much sincerity there is when we talk about PTI, we talk about, as far as they're coming down to it, whether there is clarity as far as the leadership is concerned, is it trickling down from the very top, is it just confusion? That's what, generally we're talking about.
I think, Mahrukh, things are pretty clear that I don't see that there could be a negotiation between the opposition and the government. It is quite difficult until their top leadership come out of jail and they start engaging the government. I have no hopes at all because, in the past 4 to 5 years, there have been uncertainty and political chaos. Ultimately, the state that suffered. But yes, there was uncertainty, economic challenges, and many other challenges on different front state was facing. In the recent time, particularly the 1.5 month, have been very crucial in Pakistan during the last 5 years, you can say, because the inflation comes down quickly and drastically. We were not expecting that, number one. And secondly, something seemed to be quite productive in shape of Pakistan investment facilitating council, because I just went through a very important presentation given to Prime Minister and the Minister for Planning on what's going on this economic front in the past 11 months. There could be some most productive, hopeful for the people of Pakistan, because Pakistan have signed multiple MOUs with 7 different countries on different multilateral and business engagement. For example, I can count that this council identified 7.2 million acre land where 6 countries engage Pakistan, particularly around 1 million acre land have been granted to them, and MOUs have been signed with friendly countries like France, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the consecutive engagement by the Prime Minister with Saudi Arabia and Saudi delegations, marathon meetings here in Pakistan, and different opportunities where the investor could come, and MOU have been signed on different fields. Particularly, the one most important thing perhaps be happening with China, because the Deputy Prime Minister recent visit to China perhaps is paving the way for the government and the Prime Minister to uh, uh, go to China and engage the most friendly country, because the Chinese part is quite undecided at the moment, but Pakistan is hoping that, because this momentum Pakistan wants to regain, which started once in 2016. And of course, there are many challenges, but one thing, the political engagement, unfortunately, I don't see, by the way, because yes, there are some relief to the leadership of PTI, and the he got the founder of PTI got granted in bail in two very crucial cases, and there are only two cases ahead for him, and one can expect that these cases would be concluded in a couple of weeks, because these cases are not so high-profile cases as the two previous cases were. But something happening in Supreme Court of Pakistan in the coming days, when we talk about the NAB amendment law, it could also trigger a new debate if Supreme Court of Pakistan strike down the previous order or restore even the amendment or strike down the amendment. This could be a very interesting. But Election Commission of Pakistan also looks like providing relief to PTI, the most wanted thing perhaps the leadership of PTI wanted for, because the reserve seats were, put on hold, and now the cases are in the tribunals, and Election Commission of Pakistan is also looking into this case, including the Supreme Court.
But
So
as far as
there
the
could be an
reserved seats are
opportunity.
concerned, this is now, it's in the Supreme Court. And one expects there to be a judgment on this, as far as, and for that to give some degree of clarity as to what happens to those seats, whether there's going to be are they going to be empty, can they indeed be given to other political parties or not, and we've seen the comments on them also.
That's very interesting, Mahrukh. I think this is a very crucial and first of its kind precedent in Pakistan recent history. If the seat goes vacant, then government feeling a much better position by placing itself. But it lost two-thirds majority in National Assembly. This is very interesting.
So what happens to that?
Also,
Let's come back to that. I want to talk about that, Zahid Sahib. Please stay with us. I'm going to include Javed Sahib in this also. Javed Sahib, this is very crucial. I want to come down to it. I want to talk about this. This is, the loss of two-thirds majority and its ramifications for the government, and the the play of the opposition with regard to that and its relevance. Will it not increase then?
Mahrukh, I think at the moment what is important is a political dialogue. They must initiate a political dialogue. It's not a question of two-thirds majority or not, because now, as far as Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is concerned, the party has been dismantled. Its first-year leadership is nowhere to be seen for obvious reasons post 9th of May. And the only leader which is...
I'm sorry, I'm going to, just to explain this a little bit. As far as this issue is concerned, isn't it true that, the initiation of a political dialogue doesn't seem to be the problem, because we initiate, it seems to be, initiated, and then it's invariably comes down to again abuse, and again, temperature rise, and it fizzles out. Isn't that what happens?
No, I think it is about time now. We have been talking about, media has been discussing, and even social media, responsible social media has been talking about that there's a need for dialogue. What other options are available? When you say that you would like to talk to the establishment, then once again they are being blamed that once they decided not to involve the establishment in the political affairs, and then you start talking about engaging the establishment and leaving aside the political forces, you like them or not. My point was, Mahrukh, that in any democracy, the only way forward is through dialogue. Pakistan is not an exception. As I was pointing out, that the parliament is a very important platform, and you don't like your opponents, you do that, but you have to negotiate. Negotiation doesn't mean that you're going to compromise on your basic principles or your basic ideals, whatever ideals you have. You can sit together, you can talk, you can give a message of hope to the people of Pakistan that political forces can sit together. They are pragmatic enough and they understand the challenges which this country is faced with right now. If there's any other option, anyone can put forward. I think once you say that no political party should.
On that note, let me include Dr. Nisar Chima, who's, of course, leader PMLN, and take his comment on this. Nisar Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Nisar Saab, we've been talking about this for a while, you know. We've been talking about dialogue, we've been talking about initiation of dialogue, which happens, but then it fizzles out. And, you know, of course, the general, of course, opinion is that it seems to be high time that the government and the opposition should be able to have those talks. There's also talk about, you know, a charter of democracy which can extend to the PTI. But do you see it happening? Because invariably there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of, you know, even now things tend to get heated up.
Well, Mahrukh, it's universal truth and an established principle that communication gap usually lead to slow understandings and sometimes serious conflicts. And this principle equally applies to small family units as well as to the nations as well, and also to the international community. And it's also an undeniable fact that dialogues and negotiations often lead to a resolution of serious conflicts. And the world history is witness to it, that even after deadliest wars and armed conflicts in the history of human race, when the opponents decided to sit together for negotiation and dialogue, even the serious conflicts got resolved. But it's very unfortunate in our country that PTI and its leadership generally refused. They have been refusing dialogue and negotiation. You would remember that when they were in opposition between 2013 and 2018, they chose to have dharnas at D Chowk, and they always refused dialogue and negotiation with the then rulers. Then when they came to power between 2018 and 2022, they again refused to talk to the opposition leaders.
You're right, but you know, as far as to be fair, when you talk about dialogue, isn't it true that the ball invariably has to, land in the government's lap? It's the government that has to take that extra step. And is the government taking that? Is the government willing to extend itself to the opposition at this time?
The government has always been ready. You know, the today's government and the opposition of the period of 2018-2022, you know, they always tried to have negotiations with Imran Khan and PTI. But during that period, even we faced so many serious problems, so many issues, including you remember COVID-19, and then unilateral annexation of Kashmir by Indians, then they revoked Article 370, and then violation of airspace by Indian Air Force, and their so-called surgical strikes, and our prompt and effective response.
But they say that there has to be conducive atmosphere, and the fact that, you know, there are arrests, and they say that the leaders are arrested. Before I include the guests in the studio also, that seems to be their precondition.
You would remember that PTI and its leadership even refused to shake hands with their opponents, political opponents. And with the same mindset, they are refusing to talk to the political leaders now. And surprisingly, they are ready to talk to the military leadership, the establishment, against whom they are leveling serious charges.
But isn't there some thawing, Nisar Sahab, now than what was the situation now? Because they're saying they've learned from their mistakes. That's just talk. There's no reality to it, in your opinion?
Yeah. Pardon?
They're saying that they've learnt from their mistakes. Is that just talk, or do you think that there is some change, even in the second-tier leadership, for example?
The present rulers, the present government is more than ready to talk to the PTA leadership.
But is there a change? My question is there a change within the PTI? Let's not talk about the very top. Do you think there's a change perhaps even in the second tier leadership? Because they are talking about their mistakes. They are owning up in a sense when they acknowledge that there were mistakes made.
I don't think the entire PTI leadership is on the same page.
Okay.
They are giving the different statements reflecting their different mindset. And it's very unfortunate that they are, even today, they are refusing negotiation and dialogue with the political leadership, but they are ready to talk to the military leadership.
You think please continue.
If we have to ensure the supremacy of constitution in our country, the entire political leadership, including PTI, must sit together and ensure that every individual and every institution must play its role, which has been clearly marked by the Constitution of Pakistan.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nisar Cheema. Thank you for being with us. I know that you're short of time. Your thoughts on this? You heard what Dr. Nisar Cheema said, Aniq Zafar, and now, following that, he's saying that the government wants to extend its support, but there's no clarity, there's confusion again. Is it also fueled by the comments, the kind of comments that come, the kind of statements that come from for example, the KP and the CMKP in particular?
Yeah, I mean, CMKP is quite an incinerator in his own personality, and I think that is the only way he knows to speak. That is the only way he has learned to speak. That he has to threaten everyone around him. He has to threaten the opponents, and that unfortunately is also somehow the popularity metrics of different people within PTI's ranks, that how aggressive they can be. So for Mr. Gandapur, he is always conscious of the fact that he has to prove his loyalty to Mr. Khan, and to prove that loyalty he has to act very aggressive to publicly at least, act very aggressively to the federal government, to the representatives of the federal government, and federal government has also played a prank on him by putting up a governor from the same constituency.
But do you think it's also about the variables within the party? Because, for example, there's also Umar Ayub, which is, he's supposed to be the most seasoned of Umar Ayub, for example.
Yeah, Umar Ayub is seasoned, but again, if you look at the record of Mr. Umar Ayub also on the floor of the House, I have been witnessing him on the floor of the House since 2002. He himself is a very aggressive sort of politician who doesn't no hold bar kind of attitude, and obviously Mr. Umar Ayub also is a so-called Marusi Siyasat, hereditary politics product, and comes from a military background also, because his grandfather and father both were in the military. So he also has this attitude where he becomes condescending towards others. So these two people have been placed there. Gaur Khan was not made parliamentary leader of the opposition because Gaur Khan is someone who cannot, by nature, he cannot go beyond a certain limit. He has set limits of conduct for himself throughout his life. So he was not placed there as leader of the opposition, and Mr. Umar Ayub was. I tell you with a guarantee that Mr. Umar Ayub cannot be the person who will be negotiating with the opposition. As my fellow colleague mentioned, Mr. Arif Alvi, former president.
But isn't it better?
Maybe,
then again,
maybe he can be a balancing factor in this leadership.
So my point was that there is, you know, in itself, Saif, and I want to go to Zahid Saab also with this, that Saif, there is, you know, perhaps from the PTI leadership, there's a attempt to balance.
Mahrukh, the fact of the matter is that most of the PTI leadership that actually believes in that idea of politics where dialogue is valued is totally sitting silent right now.
Okay.
They've either left the party or they're totally sitting silent.
Okay.
They're trying to maybe make the supremo of this particular party understand and realize for once that if not in the past 8 years from 2014 till 2024, then at least for once you need to come onto the table. And I'd absolutely like to second what Sir said. He was absolutely right to say that I don't think that KP even has PTI leadership in the power, because PTI leadership in KP also is acting as the opposition. I was amazed and shocked to see that the chief executive of the province is saying that I'll take over the governor house, I'll take you out of there, and I'll do this, I'll do that. You need to come out of this mental framework. Dr. Nisar Chima, not simply because of the fact that he's a fine gentleman and he's my neighbor, but also due to the fact that he's a very seasoned politician, mentioned a very decent thing over here. He said that during the time when PTI was in power, all the major political figures, the top tier 1 leadership of PMLN was facing cases. Nawaz Sharif was out of the country, Shehbaz Sharif was behind the bars, even people like Khaja Asif, Ehsan Iqbal, all of them were facing cases. Even then, there was a considerable leadership like Ayaz Sadiq and others who were willing to sit on the table, and they were willing to compromise for the sake of not their party but for the sake of parliamentary democracy. For once, at least the PTI leadership in their entire evolutionary politics need to understand that please come on to the table and try to accept that 9th May was a blunder you did, ask for forgiveness, a public pardon.
Let me take Zahid Saab on this. Zahid Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, Mahrukh.
Zahid Saab, as far as 9th May is concerned, don't you think that there are, you know, within PTI, the ranks within PTI acknowledge that it was a mistake of, you know, monumental proportions, and that, you know, having someone like Arif Alvi Saab, you know, perhaps an attempt to lead itself is a change in that sense?
Mahrukh, this is very unfortunate that the top PTI leadership did not show even the remorse that happened in Pakistan, that even their party suffered. Almost they stand nowhere to go. They were pushed into a blind alley. But unfortunately, the narrative they built, particularly on social media, that what's going on, that it totally polarized the opinion. They were trying to pushing the narrative. Still, they are trying, and even there seemed to be no make good of it, because they are saying that they're saying to the institution that suffered, and it's very rare, you apologize, and they are saying you apologize, and this is very unfortunate. We are talking about the engagement from PTI to whom you should negotiate, because the party is scattered. I don't know that their attitude, the style of politics is like take my way or the highway. And this is unfortunate. That's why the state is suffering. That's why I'm talking about the institution, and democracy is suffering. What's happened in 2018 and then what's happened in 2024, it had been 3 months down the line. No, there are no standing committees. The behavior by the chief minister of KPK, can you imagine that that to engage the center on different points, particularly with the Economic Coordination Committee and NFC award, and now with the budgetary matters. Can you imagine that the statements coming out from the chief minister and the then engagement with the governor?
Do you think that I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. As far as this is, do you think it's going to change if these conditions that they talk about, these preconditions that they talk about, for example, one that, the arrest of their leaders, which of course then brings about the question of the law following its own course and whether, really it can be a condition or not. And then, on the other hand, they say that there should be overall, no ban on Imran Khan Sahab, his speeches and his appearance, all of that. Do you think if those conditions can be met, and of course there is a question of legality and whether they really can be or not, there can be a sincerity and they will be willing to play ball, as it were?
I think the negotiation and the politics is always a game of possibilities. Everywhere in the world, here in Pakistan, still there is a space for PTI to form the committee. There are so many seasoned politicians which could negotiate with the government of Pakistan, the ruling parties like Asad Umar could be, the Asad Kassar, the existing lord, from Hamid Khan as well, and of course the former president Arif Alvi could be the one, and there are so many, but unfortunately they are divided. The house is completely divided, and that's why the dictations are being taken.
So you think there's no, let me take Javed Saab's opinion on this also. Javed Saab, you think that there is a chance if these preliminary conditions can be somehow met, and Zahid Saab is saying it's about negotiations and what can really, both parties will of course throw out their own conditions, but do you think there's a chance that perhaps there can be some serious inroads into this dialogue that we keep talking about?
Well, Mahrukh, I think negotiations can kickstart and can succeed only if Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf gives a few points agenda. For example, if they want to talk about the election rigging, well, you can put forward your agenda item, you can talk and you can sit with them. If you want to have a more space in Pakistan's politics, well, the only way forward is the parliament and the political parties. Mahrukh, as they say, the realpolitik demands that you need to understand the ground realities. You fight and run away, you live to fight for another day. But pitting yourself against the entire system, entire structure of the state is not a really wise kind of approach being adopted
in that regard.
Right? Yeah. So I think importantly that only one person who can do the impossible, and that is the founder chairman of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. The rest will only follow. If he says yes, I don't believe that they're going to say no.
Fair enough. Of course. Your comments on this, Saif, do you think that there can be inroads? Let's say that these preconditions can be met.
Mahrukh, there has to be a working mind map within PTI's top-tier leadership at once. They need to be defining the course of dialogue first. And if we are to bring in serious people for dialogue, there are pretty serious people for dialogue still. Arif Alvi has been trying to bridge that gap
for a while now.
Since 9th May happened.
Yes.
Yeah. He was the president back then. He knew the repercussions of that. There are other seasoned people as well. For example, Sheikh Waqas Akram Saab came into PTI, contested the elections and etc. He knows how the politics of the country has been in the past 20-25 years. Then you've got Malik Amin Aslam Saab, who knows how the politics of this country has been in the past 30-40 years. This is no longer something that can be resolved on Twitter or Facebook. The way PTI is trying to resolve this matter is taking Twitter as a way of the jury, as the way of the judiciary. No. When DGISPR gave in the press conference that day as the Director General of the organization, what he meant was that they need to be asking for forgiveness from the people of Pakistan. The establishment doesn't want the apology, the government doesn't want the apology, the people of Pakistan, 250 million people want that apology. 5 cantonments at one given point, the Peshawar cantonment, the Lahore cantonment, the Bahawalpur cantonment, then the Rawalpindi cantonment and Gujranwala cantonment, they were violated at one particular day, at one particular time, with people who had flags of a particular party. How hard it is to apologize that what we have done is wrong. I think the premise of the entire foundation...
But that would mean acknowledgement, which...
That absolutely means acknowledgement, but Mahrukh, I think the hearts and souls of 250 million people are not that rigid that they'll not forgive this particular political party for what they've done.
But are the other people big enough to ask for that apology? That is the larger question, Aniq Sahib, isn't that true?
Look, again, coming back to the point of PTI's PTI's architecture or its DNA. Its DNA is challenging everything, challenging the system, challenging other political parties. Any institution which is opposed, which is not following whatever PTI wants, that institution becomes sort of a target, paint a target on the leadership of that institution, on the institution itself, and go on the social media and start bombarding with your propaganda. Now, for PTI, another problem is that they are hostage to their own rhetoric, and that is that they have always accused others when they were in such situations. They accuse them of deals. Now, if they go into negotiations and come to a conclusion, will they be labeled? That agreement will that agreement be labeled as deal or what? So PTI has a problem that another problem they have is that they have created a social media troops who do not listen to anyone. So anyone talking sense will be taken apart on the social media in the next hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, overnight, and by the morning that person will be saying, I quit, I am not going to lead anything. So I am quite, I will be quite sympathetic to Mr. Alvi, former president, if he takes the lead and then he is taken apart by the social media troops. So that is going to happen. Coming back to the point that whether they have the heart and soul to acknowledge their larger mistake pointed out by fellow panelists. I think again the top leader of the founding chairman,
the Supremo needs
to have heart and soul. He has to have the heart and soul. And the rest of the people, as Mr. Jadoon pointed out, do not matter. Do not matter at all.
Fair enough. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us. Zahid Gishkori Saab, thank you for your time. Dr. Nisar Cheema, thank you for joining us. Saif Jamshed Baryar, thank you for being with us. Javed Jadoon Saab, thank you for joining us today. Aniq Zafar Saab, thank you for your time. Overall, as far as the question of dialogue is concerned, certainly there are prerequisites both sides. Negotiation is certainly on the table. Talks, start, and then of course we see this attempt, either rebuffed by one particular political party, or there's inflammatory rhetoric that invariably follows. But the question is, who is going to follow suit in the larger interests of democracy? Who is going to follow suit in the larger interests of certainty? Who's going to follow suit in the larger interest of economic certainty that Pakistan needs at this time? A working relationship, the government and the opposition that we keep talking about, but does not erode from the importance of it. Let's hope that we can, as a nation, move towards that. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.